Hello and welcome to Joy News Prime with me, Ernest Kojo Manu. We are coming to you live from our studio here at Kokomlemle in Accra. Coming up, Ghana's inflation hits the highest in 2 decades, a staggering 37.2%. Food and transportation continue to drive the upward trend. We'll hear from government statistician on the food and transportation concerns.
Generally, prices of goods and services between September 2021 and September 2022 have gone up by 37.2%.
Metromass Transport Limited workers in Tamale join Accra and Kumasi colleagues to strike over conditions of service and unpaid salaries.
Years, no Metromass Transit Limited worker has received a full salary.
Some senior high schools across the country run out of food supplies. The Education Ministry says it's a delay, not a shortage.
There is no food shortage in any secondary school in this country. We've given enough for the period.
We'll also have in this bulletin, Job for the Boys. Hello again, thanks for choosing us. I'm Ernest Kojo Manu. The inflation rate approaches 40% as year-on-year rate for September hits 37.2%, the highest in more than a decade. The Ghana Statistical Service announced the new figures at a news conference Wednesday. The key drivers identified are food and transportation. Here's government statistician Professor Samuel Kobneni.
Month of September 2022, consumer price index stood at 140.6 relative to 102.4 that was recorded for the same time in September 2021 based on the new series. So based on the new series, September 2021 consumer price index was 102.4, and based on the new series, consumer price index for the month of September 2022 stood at 140.6. Given these two indices, the year-on-year inflation for the month of September 2022 stood at 37.2%. This means that generally prices of goods and services between September 2021 and September 2022 have gone up by 37.2%. On a month-on-month basis, with a CPI for the month of September 2022 140.6 and August CPI 137.2, month-on-month inflation for the month of September 2022 stood at 2.0%. This literally means that prices of goods and services between the month of August 2022 and September 2022 went up by 2.0%. Disaggregating the September 2022 rate of inflation from the perspectives of food inflation and non-food inflation, and also from the perspectives of locally produced items and imported items, we saw a 1.1 percentage variation between food inflation and non-food inflation, specifically with food inflation year-on-year 37.8%, non-food inflation 36.8%. From a monthly perspective, we recorded a 0.5 percentage difference between food inflation and non-food inflation on a month-on-month basis, specifically with food inflation on a month-on-month basis 2.2% and non-food inflation on a month-on-month basis 1.7%.
He also explains why food and transportation continue to drive inflation in Ghana.
From a share point of view, Greater Accra contributed more than a third of the overall inflation that was recorded in the month of September 2022, specifically with a share of 34.7%, followed distantly by Ashanti region, about half of it, 17.9%, and the region that contributed least to the inflation for the month of September 2022 was the Northeast region with a contribution of 0.6%. Focusing on the regions that recorded the highest overall rate of inflation, that is Eastern region, and the region that recorded the overall highest food inflation, that was Central region, we look at the drivers in these respective regions. So overall, Eastern region had the highest rate of inflation of 47.1%, and this was mainly driven by transport that had the highest rate of inflation, 76.7%, followed by housing, water, electricity and gas and other fuels, 68.3%. It needs to be emphasized that housing, water, electricity and gas has a relatively higher weight of 0.8%, and also clothing and footwear has a higher weight of 0.9%, and the division within Eastern region that has the highest weight is alcoholic beverages, food and non-alcoholic beverages, which has a weight of 49% and a corresponding rate of inflation of 47.6%. Within Central Region, which recorded the highest food inflation of 50.3% for the month of September 2022, it was mainly driven by milk and other dairy products and eggs with a rate of inflation of 66.3%, followed by fish and other seafood 65.7%.
So that is government statistician Professor Samuel Kopnainim there, giving us details as to why we have food and transport continuing to drive inflation. And as it did indicate, the food basket is quite wide, and of course the ingredients there make it more important and of course influence the figures that we've seen so far. Kofi J is data analyst with our research desk. He joins me in the studio to bring us some more detail on the report released by the Statistical Service today. Kofi, what more do we know about inflation? I mean, nearing 40% is quite significant.
Yeah, this is a staggering figure of 37.2% year-on-year inflation. This simply means that if you compare the general price levels from September last year to September this year, prices have increased by 37.2% in this period under review. Now, if you look at the disaggregation in terms of imported items and local items, and as you can see here that with the headline inflation of 37.2%, we have imported inflation being 40.7% and local items inflation being 35.8%. Now, why is this happening? This is because of the current pressure we see on our currency, so the depreciation actually affecting imported item. This is because you need now more cedis, more cedis to afford fewer dollars in order for you to be able to import and bring items into the country. So that's the reason why we are having imported inflation being more than.
And we are heavily import driven. We import so much into the country.
So if we also do other disaggregation, so we saw the headline inflation being 37.2%. But look at this list and you can actually see that, subclass and items like water, and instead of inflation being around 58.9%, we have milks and dairy products and eggs being 49%. We have also sugar, confectionery and dessert also being around 48%. Why is water having an inflation rate of 58.9%? This is because of the current, upward adjustment of tariff in terms of electricity and water as well. But you made mention of something really important where we have this 37.2% inflation being the highest in more than 2 decades.
Yeah.
So we decided to track this. So we got data from the World Bank, and this tracks Ghana's inflation since we started this Fourth Republic 1992. So we started the Fourth Republic with an inflation rate of 10.1%. Then we saw it skyrocketing to somewhere around 59.5%. So we've been around,
the region before.
Exactly. So if you compare inflation rise from 2001, let's say 2001, where inflation was around, 29.8%, to the current inflation rate of 37.2%, you can actually see that then this is correct. It puts this current inflation rate as the highest in more than 2 decades. And as I've made mention earlier, we're actually expecting that the rate of increase for inflation should actually go down, just like we saw from May. But from 33.9 to 37.2%, it shows you that it's now increasing at an increasing rate.
And there are fears that it could get worse if government does not move to address this, Kofi. Thank you very much for bringing us those details. And the International Monetary Fund has revised Ghana's growth rate for 2022 to 3.6% from the earlier 5.2%. In its economic outlook reports, the fund expressed worry that countries like Ghana will be affected by the happenings in other developed economies, as growth in those countries are also expected to contract. The Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is leading a government delegation to negotiate with the IMF for a bailout on the ongoing spring meeting in Washington, D.C. John News is there. We'll keep you up to speed. Let's do other stories now. The Ministry of Education is admitting there have been disruptions in the food supply chain for senior high schools across the country. Deputy Public Relations Officer of the Ministry, Ya Opoku Mensah, have assured that the challenges have been addressed and that all affected schools will have, quote, received adequate supply of food items. We'll hear from him shortly, but first, let's touch base with our correspondent who have been monitoring the situation across the schools. We'll start from the Volta region and speak to correspondent Ivy Setoji. She joins us on the phone. Ivy, you have been running some checks at some schools in the region, especially at the Alavanyo Senior High School, where there have been reports of food shortage. Have they received the foodstuffs?
Well, as some of the headmasters I spoke with, and then according to my checks, they have some foodstuffs for now. Some of them told me they have inadequate food supply, but they are hoping that by next week they will be able to get some food stuff. But for now, they have enough food stuff for the students for the meantime. So they explained to me that it was inadequate, but then they are waiting for government to supply them with food stuff. There is nothing like food shortage. That was what they told me. The headmasters I spoke to, that was what they told me, that they don't have food shortage, but inadequate food supply.
Very well.
They are just looking for the best.
Ivy, thank you very much. And so from the Volta region, let's head to the Northeast region, where we received reports of severe food shortage at the Walewale Vocational and Technical Institute. Ilyasu Tanko is our man there, and he joins us also via Zoom with an update. Ilyasu, what kind of reports from there? Do they have food now?
Well, Ernest, the headmasters of the schools will not tell you. They will only direct you to the Education Directorate because of a strict policy, gag order from the Education Ministry. And just a while ago, I received a message from the CHAS president in the region saying that they received food stuff 3 days ago. And so even though the headmaster of this particular school has refused to speak to us, this is the information that I'm getting from the regional CHAS president. But even before this, it was already becoming a trend where headmasters were putting in another measures. For instance, they were now relying on the parents to come and assist them feed these children. We have a situation in the Bunkurugu Senior High School where parents were asked to pay 100 Ghana cedis to help deal with the food shortage situation in there. And only Saturday, we understand similar situation happened at the Walewale Senior High School where parents were asked to pay 50 Ghana cedis to help with the feeding of the children in the school. So yes, this is the situation in the region. Like I said, the CHAS president has confirmed to me that they received some food 3 days ago.
Ilyasu, thank you very much. And we can now hear from the Deputy Public Relations Officer of the Ministry of Education, Ya Opoku Mensah, who says the ministry has delivered adequate food items to the regional buffer stock for onward delivery to schools across the country.
And we got a window from the media. The media was reporting of food shortage. And what was surprising was that we had, within the week, engaged with CHAS, Regional Directors of Education, buffer stock outfits, the free SHS coordinators, who actually picked data on the ground. So when we heard of the news, we were astonished. So we needed to do a check on the grounds whether there could be any affirmation to what we are hearing within the media space. But it turned out to be negative. And then the media, produced a letter dated 30th September, purporting to be coming from the Volta region about a seeming food crisis within the schools, specifically from Avetime. And the statement, what the letter purported to say was that within a week from that end, if they don't see any change, they have no option than to close the school down. So we know from our outfit that just last week, consignment of food were sent to the various regional buffer stock outfits for onward delivery to the schools. And we know from the information, from the reports, from the engagement from CHAS. When we talk of CHAS, we are referring to the headmasters, giving us up-to-date information as to what they have received and how it is being used. So we weren't expecting that news from the media. All of a sudden, it sprang on us. And that is why we came out with that statement. And let me put it on record again. There is no food shortage in any secondary school in this country. There is no food shortage in any secondary school in this country. We've given enough for the period. What we are doing now is every 2 weeks, we do send food to the various schools. So that has been the plan for the past 1 month. So it will be a surprise to us that a region or a school will complain of food shortage. And I want the general public to be assured that everything that we must do to create conducive atmosphere for teaching and learning is what we are focusing on. And one critical aspect within our secondary school space has got to do with feeding. We will feed our kids morning, afternoon, evening.
And away from education, some union leaders of the Metro Mass Transit Limited have been interdicted just hours after workers of the company declared a sit-down strike. Staff say they will not get back to work until the managing director and his 2 deputies are immediately removed from office over what they term as gross incompetence in running the company. According to the workers, monthly deductions of their welfare contributions and loan repayments deducted at source are in arrears to the tune of 300,000 Ghana cedis. My colleague Michael Ashali has been engaging some of the staff in the following report.
These are scenes from Kandeshi Pamprom, the Metro Mass Transit Limited. What you are seeing is an action from junior and senior staff who are declaring an indefinite strike, a sit-down strike here over a number of issues. One of them, and what they tell me is the biggest of all, is that they haven't been paid equitably or fairly in the last 4 years. Since 2018, they tell me again their salaries have delayed for months, and yet nothing has been said by management. They are grieved, they are unhappy, and they tell me this action is happening nationwide. I mean, how bad is this situation for you? How long have you been paid?
It's very worst. It's very worst. So we can't say.
Oh, for me, let me say, for last 3 months I've received my salary, but last month I've never received my salary. So I'm hoping maybe in due process, yeah, I'll receive it maybe.
I mean, they have some placards that you are putting up here. Remember, this one says that transfer entire management from head office, Mr. Yeboah, Mr. Obin, Mr. Otu, etc. They are asking, I want to believe, for the removal of their top management. This one here said this management cannot provide for anything. They have listed 5 of them: tasks for buses, fuel for buses, that is 40 liters, spare parts, salaries, and the provident funds. They tell me that a lot more than that. So they are still putting some of these up. They are telling me they are on a sit-down strike. They're not going to work anytime soon.
Now I come here 2011. Since I come here from 2018, a better small, but now we condemn. No movement, no anything. You say our leaders here, something like MJ, JMU, or they don't want to see them.
Why is it I don't want to see them?
They don't go feel handle the work for us. So what all that we want from the government, we don't want any politicians to come here again. We should not bring anybody. We should give it to the white people. Else, he should approach to us. We will appoint him. We will show him the people who are working here almost 20 good years. They can manage this company simple way, and this company will move forward.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so, I mean, when they talk about some buses not being in very good conditions, these buses that sit here are the perfect example of what you see. Some of them have been grounded. Even some of them, I don't think will be movable anytime soon. Currently, I have the secretary to the Senior Staff Union, Anthony Apia, and he'll be walking us through the number of issues that they have written down.
But as we speak, nothing is moving at Metro Mass. Virtually nothing. Since 2018, nobody have been paid the pension scheme under tier 2 and tier 3. They will give you the check. You go to bank. They are asking you to go. You go and deposit it. And before you return, you go back for it. There are some official vehicles here, internal cars that we use here. The fuel they take a month, just a month. And a bus that goes from Accra to Chenjele and back on average, the pickups are consuming more fuel than the buses. So until MD, the 3 executives, just as they have given us query and interdiction, so them too, their office should be aligned with our charges or our grievances. And if we deserve to go as workers, we should go. If they're supposed to go, they should go. Calm will restore here.
We've been trying to get to the top management of the MMT. We are told that they are currently not available. When we do bring you some of those responses, but they are telling me they're not going to work until their top 3 management have been removed from post. For Joy News, Michael Ashali.
Well, in Tamale, striking workers were seen seated under trees while buses were parked. Abubakar Mohammed is the Assistant Divisional Secretary and Chairman of the MTT in the Northern Region.
Because you are doubting our presence, that is why today you are seeing this. Because we have always spoken to them in the quiet, just for them to speed up the process of getting buses back on board. Their reasons earlier has always been that the fleets are already down and therefore they don't have the money to bring the buses on board. And their promise was that when we get a set of new fleet, things will change. We have gotten the fleet. Even with the new fleet, it will shock you to note that they are due for servicing, but they don't have oil to service the buses. And they continue to call us thieves. The monies that we go to bring, where is the money that they cannot even service the bus? The new bus. Fine, if it is about the old buses, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. The new bus goes to road, brings money, and you don't have oil to service it. This is serious. For the past 5 years, no Metro Mass Transit Limited worker has received a full salary.
Meanwhile, union leaders say they are already being targeted by management of the company simply because they will not budge to their demands to reverse the industrial action. Amos George in Prem is divisional chairman and senior staff union. They shared details of their interdiction with us.
You see, if you can even see Bogatanga, so I'm not supposed to be in Accra. How Bogatanga came in, I won a union election on 3rd of June, an election that has been coordinated by the Human Resource Department. On 3rd of June, I won the election. Then on the 10th of June, I received a transfer letter to Boga, all in the name of, if I come as a union chairman, I'll worry some people who are in affairs, and I don't get it. You coordinated the election. If you wanted me, if you had plans for me to be in another branch, then you should have drew my attention to it. But I don't win an election and you give me a transfer letter to another branch. And all these things are schemes of intimidation and the fact that someone cannot talk. You see, if you look at the resolutions that we came up with, the deductions are over 5 years, but we've been quiet all this time. So someone would ask, why are we talking now?
We can now hear from communications manager of the Metro Mass, George Kobiasante, who says the company is working to resolve the challenges raised by the striking staff.
But the whole exercise in itself it's coming as a surprise to management. Because as a company, we have our way of doing things. Individuals cannot just wake up and declare strike action just because they feel they have concerns. The company has laid down procedure for undertaking some of this exercise. And if you have spoken with the junior staff divisional chairman, he will tell you that as the chairman of the divisional union, he is unaware of this exercise and he has not sanctioned anything of a sort. Now, let's put that aside and even move on and consider the demerits and the merits of their concerns. We are talking about unpaid salaries. The company currently is owing 2 months' salary. We've started paying August salary, and if by Friday all things being equal, we'll finish with payroll on August salary, and that means that we are owing an arrears of just a month. Are they telling us that because of 1 month's salary, under the current situation the whole world finds itself, a managing director has to be fired? I'm not sure that is the solution to the concerns they are raising. The money that they are talking about, it has been in arrest since 2015. In fact, let me say this. Had it not been the intervention of Alberta Dubois as managing director, the entire company would have been closed down by now. Check the current fleets that we are running, the current buses we are running. About 80% of these buses were the buses that he brought in. If not for his intervention, this company would have been grounded.
How come you are not paying tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 pensions for your workers?
We are not paying this because we are unable to mobilize enough revenue. We are running a company that is 100% IGF. You mobilize and you use it to pay for these expenses. So if you are not able to mobilize to even meet your budget line for your wage bill, how much more can you be able to raise enough revenue to undertake overhead activities?
Mr. Kobia,
it is difficult.
Mr. Kobia, is the Metro Mass Transit broke?
We are not broke.
Okay.
So far as we are able to pay net salary of workers, and like I mentioned, by Friday we will just be owing a month's salary. So this is not a big deal. We understand.
How are workers supposed to cope? How are workers supposed to cope? Are you also owed 1 month's salary?
Yes. I'm owed 2 months' salary.
You are
if
owed
by
2
Friday
months.
I get salary, it will be 1 month.
It must be hard.
The issue is that they were talking about some buses that are parked just because of farm beds and other minor parts.
This is Joy News Prime with me, Ernest Kojo. Still to come, job for the boys.
After graduation, it's been 3 years now, unemployed. I've tried many possibilities, send my CVs to institutions, but I don't get any reply from them.
Now, the moment I wrote BC, when I see my back, I don't get nobody to help me. So I just start hustle.
Show for tonight. Many thanks for your company. More stories on myjoyonline.com. I'm Ernest Kojo. Good evening.